Next, you want to make bedtime early. Now, like I said, I've talked with families from around the world, and for some families, depending on where they are, uh, I say make bedtime early, and they kind of look at me like I've got two heads. But there's actually a physiological reason why you want to make sure that your child with special needs is getting to bed early. Now, all of us have our own circadian rhythm, right? So our energy goes up and it goes down throughout the day. This is something that we've evolved to. It's taken thousands and thousands and thousands of years for us to be up with the sun, asleep with asleep with the dark. And our circadian rhythms actually dip more or less at the same times every day. Now, for kids, that circadian rhythm dip for the night happens anywhere between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. So really, your child's ideal bedtime is between those hours. And this is actually going to be the ideal bedtime for kids up to 7 years old, even up to 8 years old. After that age, it can get a little bit later, but really the ideal bedtime is around 7 o'clock. So a little before, a little bit after is okay. And by putting your child to sleep at these times, you're taking advantage of that window of opportunity where it's going to be easier for them to settle to sleep. It's going to be easier for them to stay asleep. And that's just because you're catering to what Mother Nature's telling us. Mother Nature is telling us each and every night, hey, get to bed at this time. We're often ignoring that message. So we're going to hear Mother Nature out loud and clear, and you want to try and get your child to bed at that time. And by doing so, everything, all of the body rhythms are going to be in sync with each other, and it's going to be much easier to stay asleep. Now, by missing that window of opportunity, you're actually starting to get your child into overtiredness. And overtiredness for any child looks like hyperactivity. And there's actually a neurological reason for this. Let me show you. So here's the brain, okay? That colorful area, that's the cortex. That's where all of your memories are going, by the way, when you sleep at night. Now, for us adults, overtiredness affects us in a completely different way. When we're overtired or not sleeping well, it's hard for us to remember things. It's hard for us to control our impulses. So for those of you out there who have not been sleeping well, chances are you're more likely to want to eat salty or sweet foods. You don't have the energy to work out, stuff like that. Now, for kids, overtiredness has been shown in studies that it overactivates this area of the brain, this area that I've circled here in red. Now, this is the posterior area of the cortex and certain regions of the midbrain, the very lower levels of the brain. Now, right smack in that circle is the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is a little gland in the brain that secretes melatonin. So it dumps melatonin into the body, which is a hormone, and it makes it easier for us to fall asleep. So by putting your child to bed too late or putting them to bed overtired, you're making the area of the brain that dictates sleep really disorganized. Okay? And for those of you out there whose child has been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, autism, etc., and hyperactivity is a problem, it's because this area of the brain in the big red circle is already disorganized. And by putting your child to sleep overtired, it's making that disorganization even worse. Okay, so now you know why. Put your child to bed nice and early. Okay, and remember, bedtime can always be earlier. So let's say, for example, you have a little one who's still taking 1 or 2 naps a day. They skip a nap or the naps are really short. Do yourself a favor and do your child a favor. Put them to bed a little bit earlier and hit that reset button. Because guess what? If you're putting them to bed a little bit earlier to make up for that lost or poor nap, it's going to make it easier for them to fall asleep, It's going to make it easier for them to stay asleep, and it'll actually help to put things back on track for naps the next day. Okay, so overtiredness is not just felt in the short term at bedtime. Overtiredness can affect the next 24-hour cycle. And chances are, for a lot of you out there whose kids are overtired, they're in this vicious cycle of their circadian rhythm is constantly out of whack, they're overtired, and it seems like there's at no point where they're going to be able to catch up. But this is where you can do it. So get your child to bed earlier. And finally, this is an added bonus to bedtime being earlier, but if your child is going to bed earlier, they're getting good quality sleep, it gives you a little extra time at the end of the day, okay? And I know that for parents of kids with special needs, you work your tails off. You work your tails off, and you deserve a couple hours to yourself at the end of the day, whether that's to catch up on a Netflix show, to read that book that's collecting dust by the bedside table, whatever it is, you deserve a little time for yourself and your own self-care. So for your whole family, get your child to bed earlier so that they have a great night's sleep, but also get your child to bed earlier so you have some time for yourself as well.